In this video, I'm going to present some clips from a documentary that I found fascinating. It's about a white woman from Germany, Stephanie Fuchs, who married into the Maasai tribe of Tanzania and has lived there for the last 9 years. So much to say about this, but first take a look at some clips from the film and I'll talk to you after.
If you wanna go, got to find a way. If you want to go.
I often hear sometimes people talk in a disrespecting manner about them, that they think, oh, aren't they really dirty? Do they wash? Like, how many times do they wash? And I'm like, what's it to you? What does it matter if someone washes or not? Because for us, maybe in the Western world, having a shower every day is the usual thing because we have access to water. Here, water, it's a luxury. They have to fight really hard to get water, so they can't shower every day.
Can we enter your house?
Sure. But it's really messy.
It's fine.
It's not very big. It has a couple of rooms. This is my bedroom.
Okay, some privacy, let's keep.
And this is where I cook.
Your kitchen?
Yes. I have a gas stove. But men in general are quite tall.
Yeah, but the ceiling is so low. Why they don't build it higher?
That's a very good question, because maybe it's more difficult to build. I mean, the women are the ones who build the houses and it's a lot of effort. This is a new house being built for one of my husband's sisters. So she's the daughter of the third wife of my husband's father. She's putting the mud on. Sour.
Very good, how are you? How is she making the mud?
This is a mixture of cow dung, you can see, cow dung and sand. And then they mix it together with their feet and also with this.
Okay.
And this is what they plaster the walls with. Why am I here? Because I fell in love with my husband, a beautiful Maasai man, and that's why I came here, because I thought this was the only way that we could stay together if I followed him here, because that's his home. And then I stayed, even though it was very difficult to adapt to the culture, but I stayed because I fell in love with also his family, his tribe, his culture, the way of life, the environment, everything. And I felt so out of place, this white girl with the weird skin that gets sunburned, and I looked at all these women and I just thought they were so beautiful. And I was just in awe. I thought this way of life is perfect, the beautiful culture, in tune with nature, with the animals. I am pretty sure there are some people who still think, even though I have lived here now for nearly 9 years, who still think, oh, who is this white girl? So I think it made the round that Sokoine, this is my husband, has this Mzungu wife, and they know my name and they greet me and they respect me and they treat me like one of their women, basically, as a whole. There is a strict division between the genders, and women are seen to be below men. I support the women with my projects, with our reusable scientific kids projects. I support them by talking to them, by encouraging them to speak up, to open their hearts and their minds, and to speak up against stuff that they don't like. So in our relationship, there are certain things that he does which other Maasai men don't do. Like, he's very close to our son, for example, but when I first had my son also, he didn't help me anything. He was a proper Maasai man, and that was really difficult. I knew it was going to be like that, but it was still more difficult than I imagined. But we got over this, and he is now super involved with our son. And in other ways also he helps me a little bit more than other Maasai, and he doesn't ask me to do things that I don't want to do. But I would say I have certain privileges that other Maasai women don't have. I don't have to go fetch water because we have a water tank, we have a motorbike, so we sometimes pay someone to go fetch us water. I don't have to go and catch firewood because I have a gas stove. I do a lot of social media also, which obviously is not the traditional Maasai life. I beat these things I make myself. Quite the dirty.
You're from Frankfurt?
Yes.
You're from the big city, so you made like the huge transition in your life. You think like the woman like you with your background can actually be like 100% Maasai for them?
No, I don't think I will ever be seen by them as completely one of them. Never. I don't even feel the need for me to be 100% Maasai because I know I won't be. I am white, I stand out, I come from a different culture, I have certain ideas that are different. For example, what it means to be a woman, the status of a woman in a society, all that sort of thing. And this I started in the last 2 years because I realized that really the Maasai women have no way of dealing with their period. They don't deal with it at all. They don't wear anything. They don't wear underwear, they don't wear clothes. If they have underwear, they maybe stuff it with leaves. Most of the time it's like free flow. So you take your liner, which you just fold, 1, 2, and you put it in here into your pad, which clips on two, and it sits like this, like a normal pad. What I love the most about the Maasai culture is the Maasai, is the people. It's their like really beautiful, beautiful hearts, and they're like good nature, peaceful, so calm, and so like in tune with themselves. Yeah, so different than so many of us Western people. So they're one of our planet's last remaining indigenous tribes. So just this, it gives them, because I know what this means, but they don't know what it means actually. And this is also one of the things, oh God, I think we have to redo this because I'm like crying.
Why you're crying?
Because it means a lot to me. If you gave the world to them, the world would still be intact. We wouldn't have all the issues that we have if everyone lived like a Maasai. And everyone had this sort of traditional knowledge that they have to live in tune with nature. They respect nature, they cherish nature, and this by itself makes them also better people. I think they are far superior to us, and their way of life is superior also to us. In tune with nature, they have land, they are rich, they have everything that you need to live, they have their animals, they know how to live sustainably without electricity, without running water. I don't feel pity for them, I feel pity for us, for our world, because we don't know what it means to live a life true to ourselves and a life true to our planet, a life true to nature.
So, where do we begin? Let's start with the glaring hypocrisy of this woman. She openly admits that the Maasai value women far lower than men. Let's pause briefly to understand what that actually means. Maasai girls usually have their genitals mutilated between the ages of 11 and 13. The vast majority of them receive no education and will become child brides, often to very old men, literally exchanged for cattle and money, and made to live a life of relentless and wearing servitude. So Stephanie tolerates any amount of degradation of Maasai women, but would certainly never tolerate such behaviour towards herself, and most certainly never from a European man. Something very strange happens to white liberal women when faced with non-white cultures. Because race beats sex in the leftist hierarchy of priorities, in these situations they shelve their feminism because to criticize non-whites takes away from the central anti-white message. Ultimately, white liberal women have learned to accept and even embrace the cognitive dissonance their ideology demands. They understand that the only unforgivable sin is to side with their own people and culture. She gushes about how the Maasai are the ones with the real wisdom, how they are better people than Westerners, but at the same time we see that she feels herself superior to them. When talking about the importance of preserving indigenous cultures, Stephanie says, tearfully, I know what this means, but they don't know what this means. And she has started a project to change Maasai women's habits during menstruation because she finds them distasteful. She has also started education projects for the girls. So which is it, Stephanie? Are the Maasai wise and inspiring, or ignorant and backwards and in need of your help? She claims to be trying to save the unique Maasai people while at the same time interbreeding with them. She also runs a cultural tour business for curious Westerners and spends a lot of time posting about her life on social media. So she really doesn't live as a Maasai woman or as part of this tribe, but she certainly exploits it for her own vanity and financial gain. Seems to me like a form of undercover colonialism, quite funny when you think about it. But given her love for indigenous people, what about Stephanie's own people, the Germans? She will never cry for her own people as they are wiped out and replaced in their own country. But she breaks down in tears over the Maasai, saying, "If you gave the world to the Maasai, the world would still be intact. It makes them better people." Even if that were true, how is her tourism business, her social media lifestyle, any better than what people do in the West? Truly, the hypocrisy of the white liberal woman knows no bounds, and I have personally witnessed hardcore, outspoken feminists reduced to silent puppy dogs when being spoken to by Muslim men about the virtues of patriarchy. After doing some research on this documentary, it turns out that Stephanie is certainly not the first Western woman to marry into the Maasai, and may have got a little inspiration from another German-speaking woman, Corinne Hoffmann, who got famous for doing this in the 1980s. Whilst on holiday in Africa, Hoffmann immediately dumped her white boyfriend of 5 years after laying eyes on a Maasai man, for whom she soon sold her apartment, business, and everything else she owned. Coming back to Europe a few years later, penniless after much abuse and with a child, she wrote a very successful book about her experience and thus also successfully monetized the Maasai. When I posted about Stephanie's story on Twitter, one comment I received was, "She's gone from low desirability to white saviour, like the last girl at last call at the bar." I think this is likely true to an extent. She enjoys being exotic there and getting attention for it. Spoilt, bored and overindulged, many Western women crave attention, novelty, adventure and sexual gratification and will go to any length to achieve it. And some white women, particularly older ones, go to Africa as sex tourists. There they can get the attention they never would at home. There are likely many explanations for these women's strange behaviour, but ultimately it's all about them. They want the attention, they want to be in control. The significance of Stephanie's story, the psychological profile of white women in general, has implications way beyond Africa. The casual indifference Stephanie has to her own hypocrisy is the same indifference all white liberal women have to the effects of multiculturalism in the West. They are happy to tolerate any revolting cultural practice of the Third World in our lands as well as overseas. In a previous video I mentioned that child marriage is now openly tolerated in Sweden and probably many other Western countries, as large numbers of Third World migrants begin to change what is normal in the West. It seems relevant to mention at this point that over half the rapes committed in Sweden are done by foreign-born men, and those are just the ones we know about. So multiculturalism really is quite the own goal for white liberal women. But in their state of derangement, what matters to them is not their safety or that of others, but maintaining their fantasy world where they are the virtuous hero of their own story. These people are a sizable part of the electorate in the West, and we can see by looking at our demographics, they are getting exactly what they are voting for. What they and all leftists are doing endangers us all. Stephanie rightly points to the fact that in the West we do not live lives that are true to ourselves or to the planet. Western modernity is hideous. Sterile, materialistic, increasingly authoritarian, anti-nation and anti-white. But how Stephanie lives is no less dishonest or unsustainable. While I sympathise with people looking for a more natural and traditional way of life, Stephanie's life in an alien tribe, a tribe that mutilates its girls and can never aspire to anything greater than a tiny house made of animal dung, cannot ultimately work. She will never be at home there, no matter how much she tries to gloss over her reality. The more I think about it, the more I feel that the Amish represent the best model for how a white nation survives sustainably. They have largely turned their back on the modern world and have preserved a precious and meaningful way of life, a way of community, hard work, and faith. I don't mean to idealize their way of life. I'm sure that it is very restrictive and tough in many ways, but they are growing in number and thriving, while we are dying. And regardless of what we are now taught, life isn't all about self-gratification and pleasure. Nations cannot survive without rules that keep people together and in line. As repellent as I find much of how the Maasai live, I say let the Maasai live like the Maasai. Let all peoples of the world live separately according to their own values and traditions. That is our natural right and is a recipe for the greatest happiness. The more the peoples of the world mix, the more we lose the precious things that make us unique. The more materialistic, debauched and shallow we all become, and the more the globalists love it. So nationalism is a cause worth fighting for. I'm not saying we can achieve our goal overnight. Probably it won't happen in most of our lifetimes, but being on the right side of a struggle like this against globalist tyranny is its own reward. And the choice of whether or not you bow to what the globalists want, that is a choice that you can make for yourself every day. So make it. Until next time, be well.